All right. Hello, YouTube. Uh, my name is Upgrade Per Alex, usually mostly referred to as Alex. And just this last weekend, I managed to get top 16 at the Broken Arrow, Oklahoma Yugioh Regional Qualifier playing Runick Bystial. It was a lot of fun. I ended up going X2 over the entire day, and I kind of wanted to give a deck profile for what I played a little bit more in depth than you might see on like a normal profile, just to really explain why I thought this was a good deck to play. And yeah, let's just get right into it. All right, start off with the main deck. So first, for our like main and really only normal summon, played 3 Girsu. This card's crazy. I felt like every time I was opening this and able to at least combo a little bit, I was just winning the match. Being able to normal summon this and dump like Harpor, or dump like maybe a follow-up piece like Symbol Skeleton if you've already done combo already, it's just crazy. And the fact that it can also treat itself as a tuner comes up in a lot of your lines. It's just so much value off one card. Like, the kind of the motto of this deck is they can't negate everything, so you just keep gassing through as much as possible. So Girsu was just the best normal summon for that. I'm not a huge fan of the Quem and the Synchro line. I think it's not bad, but if you happen to get hand trapped, I would much rather them like, maybe I go like normal summon Girsu and they hand trap that, and then I go Hugin, and then they hand trap my Hugin or whatever, and I manage to play through with like a Bystial or something and still set up like a half board, and it's just so nice. Girsu allows for so much ability to play through and bait a lot of interruptions, both going first and going second. For our kind of like pseudo starters slash like main sends off Girsu, played 1 Harp and 2 Nightmare Orcust. Harpor is just crazy. The fact that it can summon anything you need from the deck, you need it. Being able to summon, Girsu if you happen to need a bit of follow-up for something can be kind of nice. Like, you happen to have a Harp in grave, summon a Girsu when your board's completely clear, and then summon a token and then still play a little bit is crazy strong. Because you can also dump like an Orcust Nightmare or a Symbol, get back another guy from earlier in the game, and then just proceed to still have enough engine. And then 2 Orcust Nightmare. It's a half decent summon off Harp. The attack boost doesn't come up a ton, but it actually came up quite a few times during the tournament where the attack boost pushed for just that little bit extra damage, just to add a little bit more pressure. But most of the time it was just an extra card to have as a starter, because if you open a Runick spell, these become engine starters. They aren't going to get you like the full combo like Girsu does, but having access to more cards that get your engine started is important, especially because these become free discards. When you're playing the other like Synchro variant, right, you open that, you really need to normal summon them to get value, but with this, your hand just does more. It gives you a lot more value. So they're quite nice. And then the 1-ofs for the Orcust engine, 1 Symbol, 1 Return, 1 Crescendo. Symbol, it's just grind. This was such a good card the entire tournament. Being able to keep summoning back my guys from grave and like looping them constantly was absolutely bonkers. Return is probably the most underrated card in this deck. I think too many people aren't playing Return, and I think it's just a misplay. This card gives you free value. If you happen to get like double hand trapped and you open like a Bystial or something, you can just set this from your deck, send Galatea, and draw 2. And like that could, depending on your hand, that could easily get you to being able to continue playing. Especially if, like you go summon Hugin and they like Ash it. Maybe they have like Ash Imperm and they want to save Imperm for Girsu. They Ash your Hugin. It's nice, You can go into this, if they happen to like, or they can Ash your Harp even. Ashing Harp is a lot better for you because you still get it banished, so they just go make Galatea, put it back in, or even at the Bystial. That's like the best possibility, is that they, Imperm your Hugin and then they Ash the Harp in grave. Most people won't do that, but you never know what happens. And if they have a Bystial, then they're just going to Bystial the Harp, and you're in an amazing position. And Crescendo was an incredible interruption. It's kind of the main reason to play this engine, just being able to keep interrupting. This card allows you a lot of interruption, and it's good follow-up too. Some of you may have noticed that I didn't play Wand. I hate Wand in this deck. It's a hard brick. The only time that you're able to get it out of your hand, the only way, is using a Runick spell, discarding it. And other than that, you can't return it. You can't like summon it from hand some random way. It's so bad. And like even when you have it in rotation, it's like Symbol's usually just better because you're getting to Girsu anyway. Because usually what you'll do is like you'll go Harp. If you only have Harp as your starter, you go Harp for Girsu. Girsu sends Symbol. Unless you want to play around like I don't know, Imperm or something, but then they just Imperm your Galatea anyway. So, like, you're better off going Gearsu because it at least gets you a bit of follow-up and you can attach and play. Wand is just a brick. Like, you never want to see it, you never want to play it, and it never came up by testing. If anything, it just made my hands brick more. Now on to the engine that I honestly think carried the entire event. The Bystials played 3 Lubellion. It searches everything. This card's nuts. Like, there's not really much to say. This card searches all your Bystials, so of course I'm going to play it at 3. 1 Magnemute, 1 Druisworm, and 1 Baldrake as kind of the one-ofs. I do play another Bystial, but, like, Magnemute searches anything you need, depending on the situation. If you go first, you search Baldrake. If you're going second, you can search Druisworm or, like, a Lubellion to then get another name, and then you get regained in the loop, because, like, you do this, search Lubellion, you pitch Lubellion. So now they have to Ash Lubellion and remove Magnemute off the board, because if they don't, you summon Lubellion and it forces another interruption, and you haven't used a Runick, so Battle Phase forces another. So, like, this card's busted. This comes up sometimes if, like, especially if you, like, get through Lubellion and you need, like, an extra follow-up, an extra, like, interruption later. This card just does so much. And, you know, you have some lines where you can, like, IP. And then Baldrake is just an amazing interruption, usually searched going first. And the last Bystial monster, 2 Sorinir. Really, it's just more Lubellion, which is more regained. So it's worth playing. Yeah, I wouldn't cut this down. And then 2 regained, kind of the whole reason to play the Bystial engine. Especially with the fact that you're able to constantly banish your own Orcust monsters to trigger regained. It's busted, right? Like, you can Galatea put 1 back, and then regained put 1 back too. So if you happen to go, like, Harp summon a guy and then Symbol summon a guy, you get both effects. Like, you can put both back and keep looping. And it's even crazier, like, because you can technically loop Harp and Nightmare Orcust with this, because you go, like, Harp summon Nightmare Orcust, and then, you know, put Harp back, and then Nightmare Orcust send Harp, put Harp back. So it's an infinite loop, plusing you every time. Being able to loop, like, Magnemute and stuff with this is incredible. Being able to get extra searches and extra interruptions. And then the final monster I played was 2 Ash. It's generic. With the ratios that I ended up playing, it worked out, because, like, the original Synchro build was only playing, like, 8 engine, because it was the 5 tuners and then 3 duality. I played 9, and I needed a card to cut, so I decided to cut an Ash instead of a Sorinir, and it worked out, because the Bystials were a lot better than this, but this card came up a lot. It was nice. Moving on to the last engine of the deck, the engine that I would consider the glue to the engine, not the power, but it's what glues the entire deck together and allows you to keep playing and get consistency. It's the Runicks. 2 Fountain. This card's busted. There's really no reason. Like, it's crazy. Being able to get the extra draws, do this multiple times a turn with your extenders is just absolutely bonkers. And then the good ones, 3 Tip, searches everything, 3 Flashing. It beats, like, most combo decks, or any deck that isn't just, like, set 2 pass. Freezing Curses negates, I mean, Hugin, half the meta. Like, this card's nuts. Destruction. You don't want this until you do, and when you do, it's busted. So you have to play this. In worst case, you just pop one of their guys, like one of their spell traps, whenever they activate it, and you get to banish 4 anyway, and you still get, like, the banishes and draws. 3 Slumber. You can activate it on your stuff to just protect or proc draws or banish or whatever. And protect is even, but what's even better is against, like, Fire King, you can, you know, hit their Ponix with this and they can't, like, pop it for Fire King Island. But the best use is preventing them from beating over your stuff, which is huge to, like, counteract Zeus, to beat Fenrir, all that kind of stuff. It's really nice. And then the last 2 were 1 Dispelling. The banish from hand effect, like, never came up, but, you know, it was nice having another Runick. And then Smiting. I think I maybe resolved the, like, actually banishing stuff from their deck, like, once. I sometimes was just activating it just to get, like, an upstart style effect, and it was crazy. Having access to just a card that you can just activate and then upstart, it's a good cycle card, and you only play 1 of it, so, like, the likelihood of you drawing it again after already doing it in a turn is so unlikely, unless you're just beating your opponent with better engine. So, yeah, clean 40, 17 Runicks, and the rest of the engine was crazy. The amount of Runicks you have rounds about to, like, 20 or 95% that you draw at least 1, and if you draw it with any of your Orcust starters, which is, like, a good chance that you draw at least 1, I forget the math on it, but, like, you play about 6, and so if you happen to draw half decent, you can just go full combo and it kills most decks. Moving on to the extra deck, playing for Runicks, playing 2 Hugin, 1 Gary, 1 Slipnir. You need to play 2 of this. Protects your stuff, gets you to Fountain, It's nice. Gary, I only played one. I wish I had space for another one. This card's crazy. From protecting my life points in battle and being able to pop another card, to being a good level 4 for synchro plays, to being able to resolve Fountain multiple times and be good link fodder, it's crazy. Slipnir came up more as link fodder than actual interruption, but you have to play it because it will come up, and it's just crazy strong, especially with Regained. Worst case, you can banish itself, put it back, and do some stuff like that, or banish their stuff too. For the links, for the Orcust links, it was 2 Galatea and 1 Longirsu. 2 came up really consistently. This did not come up once. I was setting this out like more often than not. It was crazy. Like, you need to play 2 Galatea, but I sided this out like more often than not. It just didn't do enough, and I never like needed it. But I think it's nice to play. If it happens to come up for you, I'd say play it. But you could set it, get rid of it for like a Gary or another extra deck card. I usually set it out for Moonin post game 1. But yeah, 2 Galatea is definitely mandatory though. You need it for the grind. And then for the final links, 1 SP and 1 IP. I borrowed my SP for the event, so I don't have it with me. But this card was MVP. This is another card that, like, if I could play 2 of, I would. But the extra deck is not big enough for this deck to play 2 of this and 2 Gary and Longirsu. So you have to kind of, pick and choose. But it was nuts the amount of times the SP comes up. Like, you can't count it on paper. It's absolutely bonkers the amount of times it comes up. IP comes up for some of your combo lines. If you have like a lot of gas and like Bystials and stuff, you can like make a synchro, make an IP, bring back Galatea, set Crescendo, and have like Fountain Regained, Synchro 10 depending on what you had, IP SP or IP Galatea, and like Crescendo, like full grave, like 3 Runicks in hand or something, and you just obliterate. Like going first, it's like GG's. They can't do anything to you, and like they would have to open like 2 ways to out your Omnis plus like an evenly, and even if they do, you just keep Fountain on board, and like what, you're losing like 1 Galatea, and like if anything, you just go okay, IP into SP, and then if they go evenly, you just go chain SP, target itself in the synchro, so you banish both, and then you still have like follow up and a bunch of interruptions. So it's really hard to break the board. Like even Dark Ruler, Crescendo is crazy. So it's very important. IP didn't come up nearly as much as SP did, but playing both I feel like was really important for a link heavy strategy. For the Xyzes, 2 Dingirsu, 1 Typhon. This was the most busted card in the entire deck. In the extra deck, it felt like it was this and SP. The fact that this could just repeatedly come back and send their stuff was just too powerful. Like I would have games where it's like, oh, I just put this down and I win. Against like Vanquish Soul or against like Branded or whatever. I would just win the game on the spot. You have to play 2 of this. And even like against Branded too. The value of this is crazy because you can out Mirror Jade and then slap this on a Galatea. Go to end phase, they resolve it, and you're like, cool, Ding Protect. So like if you happen to get like multiple Galateas, or like, depending on where you are in the grind game, you out it and you like bring it back and like attach and protect. It's absolutely bonkers. Typhon rarely comes up. Like it comes up sometimes, but when it does come up, you absolutely need it. It's crazy. It wins games by itself. So you have to play it, especially because you're playing Runick. You don't have ways to out bodies, so having a card like it to out bodies is crazy strong. And then for the last 3 slots, Coral Dragon, Dispatter, Baron. Those are 3 synchros. I made this quite a lot. I barely made Dispatter because I didn't draw like a ton of Bystials when I was going first. They were more in the grind game that they started coming up. And Baron I made the most because it's the easiest to make. If you happen to open Girsu and a Runick, you can normal summon Girsu. You normal summon Girsu, activate a Runick in its column, and then summon Hugin above it. It gets the tuner, it gets the tuner attribute, and so like you just make Coral Dragon, and like worst case scenario, you go like make Coral, harp summon a guy, make Galatea, and you get to draw a card, and like you're still going full combo because you summon Symbol, you make Ding, attach you don't even have to attach because like I guess depending on how you play it, you don't really need to attach though, and then you just like make IP, and then Symbol back your Galatea. And like you got the extra draw, and it's huge. It comes up a lot. Dispatter will sometimes come up because usually what you'll do is you'll have a harp engrave. So like you make this usually after like a tip and a Bystial. You like go through. You can banish your harp with a Bystial if you want, or just do it beforehand. But to make this, you have to Bystial. So usually you're Bystialing your own harp. So you go Girsu plus this plus a Bystial to make this. You banish harp, you summon it, and then you summon back harp. Like worst case scenario, no, maybe you have an extra extender or whatever. So it comes up. and it's good in grind game too, especially because your Bystials are going to be more likely to be running. And Baron's just crazy because any 2 Runics plus a Gears makes this, and it's pretty okay in like simplified game states to make this plus like one other guy, and you can just win matches. So yeah, clean 15 card extra. And then onto the side deck. I played 3 Nib as like 3 Nib and 3 Droll as the anti-combo. It's kind of funny enough. Neither of these came up. I played against no like hard combo decks. I think the closest I got to was like maybe like a Dragon Link player, but like I bricked so hard versus him, it just didn't matter. And it almost came up versus Centurion, but he played around it. So neither of these came up, but they're kind of necessary. Like to play in a deck like this, you have to have these. They come up too often against like mini demon stuff. And then the funniest and probably the MVP or close to in the side deck is Dogwood. I sided this in a couple times, and I only had 1 game where I drew it, and it was against Braided. I drew 2 of these, an Ash, and like I think 2 engine cards. And so he bricked on his first turn, so he set a couple past. I normal summoned Gearsu, sent, and then I battle face poked, and then he tried to play later, and I went Dogwood on his first one, so he just made something pretty simple and then passed it back. And then he tried to go again, and I'm like, all right, cool, Dogwood again. And I'd already cycloned me twice. So, like, 2 Cyclones plus 2 Dogwoods. The gap was too large when time was, like, that close. And the game was over. Because I could also just wall up. This card's crazy in Runick. Because, like, your game 1s, game 2s last forever. Because your deck takes a while to get rolling and, like, do its stuff. And some people just don't want to scoop that early. Because they're like, maybe I can eke it out. I've done the same thing. But this card helps a lot in those game states. Having this is important. You need some way to win in time, not just on your own turn. For board breakers, so I played 3 evenly. I played a couple of the board breakers, but this is crazy. It did not come up, but if it did, this card's nuts right now, especially with how much Rogue I played against. Like, I didn't play against much meta, which was like kind of a thank God moment. But like, I mean, this can kill Rescue Ace, this can kill Vanquish Soul, depending on how their board's set up, because like, you evenly them, and they have like no guys, so they have to like, Trap's the only way to play. So like, they go Trap, and they try to play, and it's like, all right, cool, pop your guy after, like, you pop it on their turn or whatever, and now they like don't have anything to play with. Or like, some trap decks, some general combo decks, like against Runick for Hire Sprite. This is crazy. The one guy that I played against who was playing the deck put Judgment in to beat stuff like this. It's crazy against like Runick decks against a lot, and like, sure, you skip your battle phase, but like, you just go battle, activate a Runick. You can make like Gary beat into something, activate into the Runick to pop something, and then evenly, and then you still have 3 cards left in the hand after, and like, you can still just like normal summon Gearsu, set up a small end board, and then pass, and like, you evenly them plus out of their boards. So like, what are they gonna do? And then the other board breaker that unfortunately didn't come up, but it would have been kind of cool if it did, and that's Regeki. I put this in to beat stuff like Vanquish Soul, to force like the trap. So basically, I force them to have it on board. And if they don't have the trap, or like they use it poorly, I can just blow up their board, and it's crazy. It's worth playing, I think. It's not crazy against like some of the meta decks. It's like kind of mid, but like if Rescue Ace gets greedy, this can be a funny punish. But like, even if it isn't, you can like, you still can force some of their interruption. Like you Raigeki, and it pulls up with their entire board, so they have to use Rescue to bring it back, and then both traps. And like after that, they have like almost nothing, depending on how their end board was set up. So it's not crazy, but it's nice. And then the last was Moonin. You have to play this. It allows you to basically have an instant win card going first, because like you do your normal Galatea stuff, and then like you can just like slap this down, or like you do some stuff. Maybe you draw a couple cards, and then you put this on the board after setting up part of an end board, and then you just win in time, because they can't beat this plus everything else that you've got. So, yeah, that is those are the cards that I ended up playing. It was really clean. Like, I probably wouldn't change anything, even knowing what my matchups were. I wouldn't change ratios. I wouldn't change what I picked. Like, maybe playing Bell could have been half decent against like a couple matchups, but even then, kind of mid. Maybe more Bystials on the side. That's about the only thing I could think of, just because of how many light dark decks I played, or decks that had light darks. It might have been helpful. So after all that, I do want to kind of go over my matchups and kind of explain kind of how the tournament went. It was 9 rounds. I went X2. Round 1 was against Centurion. Game 1, it was pretty simple. I just eventually took over the game, and then he scooped. And then game 2, I was able to just keep my life points. Like, I was able to keep myself afloat. and like wall up with like Bystials and Runicks and stuff, and then you just couldn't break it. So I went in time. Round 2 was against Runick for a higher sprite. Honestly, that matchup is die roll dependent. I won the die roll, so game 1 I win because I have full combo. Game 2 he wins because he had full combo plus Judgment, which Judgment absolutely clapped me. Was not ready for that. And then game 3 I just go first, and he just can't break it because like I can easily do everything I need to do. Round 3 was against Dynamorphia. Game 1, the Runicks are crazy for Dynamorphia, so like game 1 I'm able to like grind him out because I think I go first, and I set up my whole thing, I grind him out, and then game 2 he goes around, I think he goes first, and he does have like some pretty solid stuff. I think he had maybe a Judgment or 2, I think he eventually had like a Ferret Flames and some Engine, but like I was able to eventually outgrind him, and he was down to like no life points, and with Runicks, Bystials, and the Orcust stuff grinding, and him not being able to beat over all my stuff really easily, because I'm just sitting on bodies at this point. He can't beat me, time gets called, and I win in time. Round 4 was against Phantom Knight Adventure Porous Pile deck. I go first, game 1. I set up like my typical end board. He goes like, I think like normal summon boots, special summon boots, make break sword, try to like go battle phase, and I like, like flashing fired his guy, so he summons 2 out, goes main phase 2, he tries to play a little bit, and I just have too much gas, so he can't do anything. And then game 2, he like combos a little bit. It was a really weird hand. He had like multiple Enchantress, maybe like a couple actual engine cards, but it was really bad for him. And he just like makes like nothing and he passes. And so I go like, I Bystial him, getting rid of like his cloak or whatever. So he tried to go Phantom Knight. So I Bystial him. I had like a Nib, Magnamute, 2 Runicks, and a Harp in hand, and I was just gonna cook him because I go like Magnamute, and then I hit another one of his guys with a Bystial. And then I just go battle, beat over his token. So even if he had Griffin, it didn't matter because like he just couldn't do anything about it. And then main phase 2, I just crack his entire board, and I eventually just went out. The Bystials are crazy versus a deck like Phantom Knights. Round 5 was against Vanquish Soul. So, let me think. So, game 1, I'm trying to remember. I think he shifters me game 1, which, like, normally hurts, but I had a hand of, like, Runick, Girsu, another Runick that I discarded, and, like, 2 other Runicks or something. It was a very, like, Runick-heavy hand. But I like normal summon Girsu, don't use the effect to make Galatea, put Girsu back, which is one of our ways to play the under shifter, is just make Galatea, put back the banished Orcust, and then, cook. Because now we can set a crescendo, and then like it comes back to me, I'm just able to like eventually crack his board. Game 2, he goes first. He sets up I think he just sets up like a really mid board, and I'm just able to crack it with Engine, and eventually take the game. Bystials, again, kind of hard carrying. Like, the rest of the engine was great, but the Bystials were huge bodies, and I was just able to beat over everything. Round 6 was against Branded. Game 1, I think I might have gone first. I won a lot of die rolls this tournament. But I think I went first, and he was just able to crack through and do everything he needed to do. Game 2, I go first again, but I'm actually able to, like, play through what he's got. Able to actually set up and play back and forth, and eventually with, like, Runick Destructions and stuff, popping his stuff and keeping alive, and eventually getting enough advantage, he scoops. And then game 3, like I said, I had the double Dogwood, Ash, and he bricks, so I just ended up winning that due to time. Round 7 was against Dragon Link. It was the first match that I played where I just basically hard bricked. Game 1, I think it was like I opened like no, maybe it was like 1 Runick, 1 or 2, it was a few Runicks, but like he ends up like hitting my Hugin, and I just don't have any engine. And it's like, let me think. No, sorry, yeah. I have some Runicks and some engine, so I try to play. I got like Lubellion, Search, Bystial, and like my plan is I have a Nymoricus in hand, right? Which I didn't. I think I like drew I forget exactly how I drew some cards, but I ended up like getting access to it and playing like just a tiny little bit. And unfortunately, I was gonna try to normal summon Nymoricus, but then he Bystial my Lubellion, and I couldn't do anything, so I pass. He ends up being able to take it. Game 1, and then game 2, I go first, and I open 5 Runicks. He ashes or imperms my Hugin or whatever, and I just lose. So, kind of an unfortunate thing where he just hits everything that I've got, and I open no ways to play through it. Round 8, I actually lose game 1. I get a game 1 loss due to just not showing up for it. I was late because I was busy. And then game 2, I open 0 Runicks. Again, 95% chance to open at least 1. I open 0. If I open 1, there's actually a chance, but he just had too much. I was able to like gas through it with I think I like negate his Dark Witch, but he can like summon. He like normal summoned Hydrant, special summoned Fire Engine, and I wasn't able to play quick enough. Like if I was, maybe if like instead of doing the greedy play that I did, because I kind of forgot That's how that works. If I had done that first, where I started with that, I might have been able to like banish his hydrant, but I think he had emergency anyway, so I don't think it mattered. So yeah, I ended up losing that pretty swiftly, and then round 9 was against Runick Stun. I win the die roll. I tip, banish top card of his deck, and it is a stun card. So I'm like, okay, cool. I know what he's on. I set up a little bit, and we go back and forth. I am down to my last card in deck. I draw. I have no cards left in deck, and I have, I think, 2 or 3 Bystials on board, and I just barely managed to squeak the damage through. There was maybe a point with Runick Slumber that he maybe should have just used it as defense, which if he did, there's a chance I lose if he draws into another Runick, depending on what it is, but thank God he didn't. So I win game 1, and then game 2. He goes first, sets, passes, like after he sets up a little bit. I'm like, okay. We start playing back and forth again, and I just managed to win. It's crazy. I was honestly not expecting to clobber him like that, but the Bystials were absolutely nuts in that matchup. So Bystials were hard carry of the event. But yeah, that's kind of the event rundown. X2 got 12th place. Really happy with how the deck performed. If I played against more, Fire King, Rescue Ace, or even like some other random matchups that just wouldn't lose hard to the Bystials, or like even Vanadium that just clobbers me if I go second, and they happen to win the die roll, I easily could have gotten like X4, X5 at the event. So, a little bit luck, but, success being a thing of like luck and timing. So I happened to get pretty lucky. I happened to time it pretty well and managed to top the event. Shoutouts. I want to give shoutouts to the entire Chaos Games crew. For the past couple of years, I've been playing consistently and getting a lot of practice in. This is, I think, my 4th regional invite at this point. Yeah, my 4th one. And a lot of that practice and being able to do this is just thanks to the entire Chaos Games crew. Specifically, shout out to for card barring. Shout out to Chase for letting me borrow his some Bystial stuff. Shout out to my boy Tristan. He also played at the event, and he let me borrow his SP. It was, very nice guy. Yeah, shout out to all the Chaos Games crew. And shout out to the host of the event. That was huge. And also shout out to the Yugioh Discords. If you guys are aware of those, they're huge help in just general testing, deck lists, everything. Huge shout out to Earth Machine Discord, honestly, with their spreadsheets and stuff, being able to let me look at what the meta is and figure out how I want to play against stuff. It was a huge help in prepping for the event. But yeah, that's all I've got for the profile. I hope you guys enjoyed kind of seeing into the mind of somebody who maybe isn't an incredibly high level player, but somebody who wants to play pretty competitively and, happen to get pretty lucky and be able to top the event. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and, huge shout out to the people I played against at the regional as well. It was a huge event, very fun. I had a blast. So yeah, appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the future. Peace out, y'all.